One of the things that it makes clear when we start to read some of these verses is that, that means it's going to be on earth. Well, yes, that's what that means. It's going to be on earth. And a lot of times people think, well, we die, we go to heaven. Well, in one respect, we do as Christians. When the rapture occurs, we'll be taken out. We'll spend the 7 years that the earth is going through the tribulation. We'll be in heaven at the marriage, the bride adorned for the marriage, but the earth will be going through a tribulation period. And Zechariah 14, let's see if it says, and it shall, in verse 16 of Zechariah 14, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations, and when we speak of nations here, we speak of course, another word for nations is Gentiles, but we speak of the nations that came to attack Christ during the Battle of Armageddon, and we discussed last week that we realized that not every single person is going to, that some people won't. But those that enter the millennial kingdom, it says, and everyone that is left of those nations, those that came through the tribulation period, those that didn't take the mark of the beast, these were left of the nations, which came up against Jerusalem. That gives us the description of the nations we're talking about. Shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And so and that's the only thing I can find that says that we will, only feast that we'll recognize, but that's during the millennial kingdom. Zechariah 14, 16 tells us that. And say, well, the next verse adds so much to that. And these are things we did last week, just to touch on. Verse 17 says, and it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of the host, even upon them shall be no rain. So verse 17 tells us a couple things. Verse 17 says, I got a choice. So of the people, and because it says here, of those of the nations. So these are those that came through the tribulation period that didn't take the mark of the beast. And it says that they have to come up year to year to worship the King and keep the Feast of the Tabernacles. And it'll be that whoever of those families, so there will be families during the tribulation or during the millennial kingdom. You and I will not participate in families anymore. We're going to have glorified bodies. I think the Bible is pretty clear on the fact that we won't have a family, but of all the families on the earth, it says, it tells me it's going to be on the earth, and those who don't, so that tells me I got a choice. I can either go up and keep the Feast of the Tabernacles like I'm commanded, or I don't have to be. So we know that we can derive just from that during the millennium there will be some disobedience. There will be some people that don't keep the Feast of the Tabernacles. And that's where you and I come in. A lot of what we do is administer justice. But we also will go talk to these people, I'm sure, and say, hey, dummy, the Lord said you're supposed to be there. You didn't go. And so, I mean, I think that's part of what we'll do. Are you one of the Harless boys or something? What's going on with you? Hard-headed?
Don't say anything.
And so he says that their punishment for that will be that not going to be rain. So the Lord will just withhold rain from them. And he goes on to say, and if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, they have no rain, and there shall be a plague, wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to the Feast of Tabernacles. So we and we know that this is talking about the millennial kingdom. If you go back to verse 9, it tells you that, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth in that day, and shall be one Lord and his name. And we can read the rest of that. So there's no question as to where this is. Verse 5 tells us about the earthquakes and things that are going to happen at the second coming. So the millennial kingdom, contrary, of course, a lot of times we just don't think about it or didn't think about it, where the millennium was going to be. Millennium is going to be on earth. That's the kingdom of David, where the Lord's going to sit on the throne. It's going to be for 1,000 years. We've covered that in great detail here over the last couple of weeks. And we know that it will be a united people and united worship, even though there'll be some people that don't listen. We know that Satan is going to be bound during this time. The Bible says that he's going to be cast into the bottomless pit, and the beast and the false prophet are already in the lake of fire. Chapter 20 in Revelation tells us that an angel came down from heaven having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand, and he laid hold on the dragon and Satan, that old serpent, which is the devil, and bound him for 1,000 years. So I know that it's going to be 1,000 years. That corresponds with everything else that said 1,000 years. That lets me know that millennium, 1,000 years, it's going to be on earth, and that he's going to be bound. Now it says that he's bound and shut up in the bottomless pit, and a seal is put on him that he should deceive the nations no more. And then it has a comma in verse 3, till the 1,000 years be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season, or released for a while. So that tells me that that Satan is loosed at the end of the millennial kingdom. Verse 7 of chapter 20 also says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog. We don't want to confuse Gog and Magog there with the Gog and Magog that was in Ezekiel 38. It doesn't appear that that's the same people we're talking about here. It's what we're looking at as here is regions of the land, not a prince of Gog or the prince of Magog in this particular part. And but it says that they'll go out together to do battle, the number of whom is as of the sand of the sea. So we know that Satan is going to be loosed after 1,000 years. We know that there is going to be a 1,000-year period. We know, we just read Zechariah, it's going to be on earth. So there's going to be a time on earth, 1,000 years, where Satan is placed in the bottomless pit. We know that the false prophet and the Antichrist are already in the lake of fire. They're waiting until Satan is going to be cast there as well. How do I know? Because verse 20:10 says that, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire, where the beast, or the Antichrist, and the false prophet currently are. So we know that they are already there. They were cast in there, and but Satan is led out to deceive the nations. He'll deceive those in the millennium who are children of the original folks that came into the millennium out of the tribulation period, and it's going to be a huge amount, because verse 8 in chapter 20 says, the number of whom is as the sand in the sea. During the millennial kingdom, the population is going to grow so much as to actually fulfill God's ancient command in Genesis In Genesis 9, he said to fill the earth. Well, the millennium will fill that prophecy. It's going to fill the earth with the benefit of longevity and a perfect environment, perfect social conditions, that the earth is going to be filled. There's going to be 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. But yet, even while experiencing the personal reign of Christ on earth, that when Satan has a chance to get loose, there's going to be millions of people who are going to follow Satan. Why would it be that during that these people, mom and dad, came through the tribulation period because they didn't take the mark of the beast, and they multiplied? Mom and dad were saved, obviously, but the children have to accept Christ as well. Why would they follow Satan? The simple answer.
They're still human. They're still human. I mean,
Exactly. They're in the flesh. Yeah, and just like today, if you bind Satan and all the demons, you and I still want to sin because we're still in the flesh. We have a sin nature. We don't need any help from Satan. We do it of ourselves. The Bible says our heart is deceitfully wicked. And so the same holds true for them. That's exactly the same. They still have a sin nature, and presented with the opportunity, many of them are going to follow. Many of them are going to follow Satan. But we know Satan is loosed for 1,000, or bound for 1,000 years. At the end of the millennial kingdom, he comes out. He tempts some, and Revelation says here a number of them as the number of the sand of the sea. So many of them are going to follow him. They're going to follow Satan and do what? Any idea? This is at the end of the millennium. I'm jumping forward, but since we're talking about that, they're going to choose to do battle on Jerusalem again. How is God going to destroy them this time?
He sends down fire from heaven.
Okay, yeah, and it's not going to be a big fight like the Battle of Armageddon, where the Bible says that gather ye the birds and they can eat on the garden. God's going to say, you're done, and fire will come and just dissolve them. They'll be gone. So yeah, that's true. But the millennium is going to be a time. This is the next thing I want to look at. It's going to be a time of regeneration. Matthew 19:28. Who's ever got it, look at it up. Romans 8:19. Look at it. And I'll try not to do as many verses tonight, but a couple of things I want you to look at. Isaiah 35 and Isaiah 55. Look at those verses. Isaiah 11 and Isaiah 35. We'll look at those. So start with Matthew 19. Is Matthew here? Martha, that's bound to been you. I was going to blame it on you, though. All right, Matthew 19 says this. Matthew 19:28 says this. And Jesus, and this is here, Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So when we read that, based on what it says, that you shall set up on he shall sit on the throne of his glory, and ye shall set up on 12 thrones, and judging the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, that I automatically know that who's going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel? That's going to be the apostles. And when are they going to set up on thrones? And that's going to be the millennial kingdom. So nobody has to tell me those things. When I read that, I know that that's never happened in history, and it is a future event. And that is the rewards of what is going to happen to the apostles. It is that they are going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. They will set up 12 thrones. But the thing I wanted you to get out of that, he said, Verily, truly I say unto you, what he said, you guys which followed me. And he says, now, you that have followed me, and here he starts to say it, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits upon his throne. in the regeneration. So he's talking about obviously the millennium, but he says regeneration. This is not an immediate recreation. This is a process, or it means or restoration of the earth back to its close to its perfect state, even to the pre-Genesis flood is what we're going to work back toward. And this happens at Christ's return, but it does not happen when he sits on his throne and we start ruling and reigning day one. It's just not a one-time event. The Lord's just not going to say, hey, bang, it's happened. Tomorrow it gets a little better. The next day a little better. And a little better and a little better and a little better. And it happens over a period of years. It doesn't happen instantly. And that's, he says, this period of regeneration. Romans 8:19. Did somebody get that?
I've got it.
Read 8:19 through 22.
For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God.
Go to 22.
Okay. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now.
So the creation groaneth and travaileth. Creation has changed, and creation today groans because of the sin of the world, and it's not what God had intended for it to be created as, and it groans to go back to that. During the time of regeneration, it is going to go back to that. It's just not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a period of time. We got glorified bodies. What do we care? We got 1,000 years. So we'll watch it happen to get back to that state. It's just not going to be an immediate supernatural event that happens all at once. I get it's hard to get in our minds, but the day that the millennium starts, you walk out of this church building and it'll look just the same way out there when you look at the road. The hay's just going to start growing thicker. The fruit on the trees is going to start getting better. The thorns are going to get shorter. The blackberry bushes are going to have less and less thorns. The teeth of the lions are going to start getting less and less and less to where they graze with the cattle. Everything is going to change, but it doesn't appear like it's going to change instantly. Who's got Isaiah 35? Read Isaiah 35, starting at verse 1.
I have it.
All right.
The wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice, and the blossom as the rose. It shall blossom abundantly, and rejoice even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given unto it, the excellency of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, and the excellency of our God. Strengthen ye the weak hands, and confirm the feeble knees. How far do you want me to go?
I'll keep going because it's, to go at least about 7 or 8.
Okay. Say to them that are of a fearful heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, even God with a recompense. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap as an hart, and the tongue of the dumb sing. For in the wilderness shall waters break out, and streams in the desert. And the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. In the habitation of dragons, where each lay shall be grass with reeds and rushes, and an highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those, the wayfaring men, though fools, shall not err therein.
One more verse.
No lion shall be there, nor any ravenous beast shall go up thereon. It shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there.
So we notice that one of the things that the parched ground shall become, and it will put forth its waters. Waters shall break out in the streams of the desert. So it's going to happen that the topographical aspect of the earth is going to change. It's just not will change all at once. These things are going to happen in the millennium till it gets back to that time that it was like when the Lord created it in the Garden of Eden. It said, and in verse 13 of that same chapter, it says, instead of the thorn shall come up a fir tree. Instead of the briar shall come up a myrtle tree. And it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. In his time, these things are going to happen. Who's got Isaiah? We do. We was just in Isaiah. Debbie, go to Isaiah 35. In
I just read.
well,
You want me to go to 11?
no, 65.
Oh.
Isaiah 11. While you're there, I'm going to go here. We talk about. So I was talking about the land. Let's look at the nature of some animals. In Isaiah 11:6, the wolf shall also dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall graze their young ones, and shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an ox, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of an asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of knowledge of the Lord, and as the waters covered the sea. So that tells us what's happening with the animals. Isaiah 65:25. Deb.
The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and the dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountains, saith the Lord.
And Ezekiel 34:25 says, and I will make with them a covenant of peace, and I will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. And he goes on to say, verse 26 says, and I will make them and places round about my hill a blessing, and I will cause the shower to come in his seasons. There shall be showers of blessing. It says they shall be safe in their land. They shall be no more prey. They shall be no more beasts to devour men. They shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. In Isaiah 35 says, the wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad, and the desert shall rejoice. I think you read that, didn't you? And the
Yes.
blossom as a rose. Talks about how the ground is going to be restored. In the millennium, crop failure is only going to be a result of those who fail to come to worship at Jerusalem. We saw that in Zechariah. Human life will be prolonged. There'll be some death, but it is going to be the exception, not the norm. In Isaiah 65:20, that says, there shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed. So he says, for someone to die during the millennial kingdom at 100, it's going to be like they were a child. They're going to, many will live for the full 1,000 years, and there's going to be so little death and so little sin. Revelation 21:4 says that that's the way we're going to be. It's going to be a restoration toward paradise before sin entered the world, and we'll see these things start to happen gradually, though not entirely removed. Sickness will decrease along with the decrease of sin. We know that sickness is a result of sin, but that's what it came into the world because of sin, and we'll see very little of it during the millennial kingdom. So we know that the earth is going to restore, people are going to restore. Deb read where it wasn't going to be any blind, no lame, no deaf. So we won't see that during the millennial kingdom. So it'll be perfect peace. In 35, I think, yeah, she read that, talks about weak hands and feeble knees that were going to be strengthened. So physically healing is going to be given to many. It speaks of joy, happiness, peace, gladness. In 35:10 it says, and the ransom of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. We sing that song, they shall obtain gladness and joy and peace shall be upon their heads. Here's where it comes from. It says, everlasting joy upon their heads, they shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and mourning or sighing shall flee away. So it's going to be a time that we just can't imagine. Micah 4:25 says there's going to be prosperity and security. We think, well, what do we need prosperity for? Well, the people that are going to be working, they will still be working to fulfill some of their needs as well. So Micah says that they're going to prosper. Their hands will prosper. Of course, they're going to they'll have a whole lot more time to do it. Isaiah 11:9 says the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord. A lot of questions that we ask now and we wonder about, say, I wonder if this is true. I wonder how that can happen. Well, in Isaiah, we will get those answers. Isaiah 11:9 says, they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters covers the sea. We'll have the answers. We'll have those why questions answered. I doubt if we ask them then, but we'll have them. Friendly relations is going to exist between nations and people. Men will no longer make war. One of the most beautiful verses, I think it's in Isaiah, says that they will beat their weapons into plows. What's Isaiah 2? Says they'll revolt no more, and that we'll learn war no more, and will provoke the Lord no more. So there'll be a time of peace, and we'll no longer learn war. Verse 4 says of chapter 2 of Isaiah says, and he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So relations between nations are going to be good, and I suspect that we'll all speak one language. This time it'll be okay. Man's dominion over the earth is going to be restored. The Lord's going to rule, but we rule and reign with him for sure. But but our dominion over the earth. You know, when Lord told Adam to have dominion over everything, and then he said, "Go forward and populate the earth." This is the time that will be fulfilled. We'll definitely populate the earth. Hebrews talks about. It says, "For unto the angels hath not he put in subjection the world to come, whereof we speak," and this is what the writer of Hebrews is talking about. And so now you get the understanding of what he's talking about. The angels are going to be in subjection, and we're talking about the world to come. We know that you and I are going to be over the angels. Matter of fact, Corinthians says we judge the angels. But verse 6 says, "But one in a certain place testified, saying, What is man, that thou art mindful of him? Or the son of man, that thou visitest him? Thou madest him a little lower than the angels. Thou crownest him with the glory of honor, and didst set him over the work of thy hands. Thou hast put all things in subjection under his feet," man's feet. "For in that he put all in subjection under him, he left nothing that is not put under him. But now we see not yet all things put under him." We don't see those things happening now. But we will see it, verse 5, in the world to come. All things are put back into the subjection of man. We find that we reign with Christ for 1,000 years. When we were in heaven during the tribulation period, we had the marriage. When we come back to the earth, it is a 1,000-year honeymoon, starting with the marriage supper of the Lamb, where all will get together and participate in that period. The marriage of the Lamb took place in heaven during the tribulation period. Immediately following the tribulation period, we see the returning of Christ to earth with his bride. We see that in Revelation. And when he comes back to earth with his bride for a 1,000-year honeymoon, as Christ descends to earth, he brings his armies with him to establish his kingdom. We see that there at the end of the tribulation, there are armies here waiting on him and to keep him from establishing his kingdom. We know that they are formidable, but we know that they are defeated, and that he's going to rule and reign for 1,000 years. At the end of the tribulation, we will come back with Christ, and I wrote down, here it is, just a cool point. The scientists speculate today that the third heaven is 2,932,848,000,000,000 miles away. So for us to come back with Christ, we will have to travel 1 billion times faster than the speed of light to get here. Now, that distance that I give you is 2,932,848, and then 36912, 15 zeros. That's what 2 quintillion miles are. That's where they're saying that the third heaven is. Next week we'll look at when we know that at the end of the tribulation period there is the judgment of the nations. But next week we'll look at when do the Old Testament saints raise up, because we know that they go into the tribulation period. So when do they raise, and what role do they play in the millennial kingdom as well? We'll look at those things next week. But we're starting to get a picture of what it looks like. How do I know that the rapture is ready? Isaiah 32 tells me that it's ready. Artificial intelligence, woke, transgender, LBPQRSTV, airplanes. Airplanes are mentioned in Isaiah 31:5, one world church. The desert becoming as a rose, we read that, Isaiah 35:1. Horseless carriages or automobiles were mentioned in Nahum 2, 3-4. The alignment of the European nation or the 10-nation confederation, Daniel 2:24 plus Daniel 7:24 plus Revelation 17:12. The knowledge explosion that we see today, Daniel 12. The increase in travel, Daniel 12. All of these things are leading up to the rapture of the church. Wars and rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes, pestilence, iniquity abounding, a falling away, introduction of evil spirits, cults, and apostles or apostate church. When have you ever